two Kieran McKenna derbies, either side of the international break, both on a Sunday afternoon. One ended in victory. How will the other one go? We are Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We could have been, Seb, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this evening, sipping champagne with the great and the good, and losing in the best podcast category Premier League at the FCAs. But we are here because it's Man United at home, Seb, and it's pretty freaking awesome, isn't it? Like, we'll talk more about Man United in 2024. It's not maybe the Man United of old, but it's still the world's biggest football club, and it's still really exciting. And lots of narrative around new boss. How a few days out, your excitement levels, tell us about them.
I am very excited. Like to quote Gary Neville, this is Manchester United, and this was the team for us, wasn't it? I know when the fixtures came out, City are the new cool thing. Liverpool been going really well in recent years, and Liverpool probably are second to United in terms of probably size of clubs in this country. But for me, I looked at Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan. Obviously, Man United were the side for us in the kind of the mid '90s when I started going to football, the early 2000s. Those great sides, those iconic players, and yeah, it's really exciting for them to come to Portman Road and face us. And obviously now we've got this added circus of it's their new manager's first game, just in case the game wasn't big enough, and it's already on Sky at 4:30, etc. So yeah, this feels like a huge game, a huge weekend, and I am very, very excited for it.
The ribbon cutting for the microwave above the security.
Of course, yes. Darth Vader's helmet will be getting an outing. I forgot
Maybe
about that.
Roy Keane is in the studio as well. I would guess his first return back to Portman Road, but at least officially. I don't know.
Officially, yeah. I remember seeing him once. There was a picture of him talking to Marcus Evans in a box during the Mick era, I think. Right. So I think he has popped back unofficially. But yes, I presume he'll be there along with Mika Richards, and Gary Neville will be on the co-coms in our lovely new media suite. And yeah, incredibly exciting weekend, I think.
Well, we are here to major on it. It's great to have so many of you with us as well. Give us your thoughts in the chat. If you're a visiting Man United fan, you're very welcome. We will try and do our best to be respectful about your team. We are here to enlighten the Ipswich Town support, but we want to canter through what's going on for the opposition. So give us your thoughts, correct us if we go wrong, and ideally in a respectful way. And of course, we'll talk about how Kieran McKenna approaches things. And I guess they're off the back of a really great victory at Spurs. We haven't had an opportunity to talk about that. You and I, we could see each other from afar. Do you want to explain to the watchers or listeners the approach that we took to making sure that victory happened at White Hart Lane at the Tottenham Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will credit Sammy Szmodic and Kieran McKenna and Liam Delap for the day. Wrong. That's not how this played out. I bought my ticket in advance because I'm a much better fan than you, have many more points. But you guys had an empty seat next to you, didn't you? So the plan was at half-time, I was going to shift across. Half-time, 2-0 up, all going incredibly well. I stayed put, and we won the game. So nobody's thanked us for the last 2 weeks, but, we did our bit on the day as well. But, yeah.
So we did our bit, didn't we? Let's say hello to the chat as well before we get too far into things. Hello to Nick. Another 3 points, he says. Love that. Oh, I've still got the pink from last week. Let's keep it. Keep the pink. It did a job for us at Spurs. Hopefully it will do a job on Sunday. Good day to Michael. All very damp in Brisbane. I bet it's not 0 degrees, Michael, where you are, but he says, let's put on a good show on Sunday. Edith to Neil. Going to be an interesting team selection for us. Players, hopefully, Seb back from injury. Jacob Greaves, one of them. A couple of others, I guess. Axel Tuanzebe was a surprise inclusion, but Jacob Greaves is the question mark. Maybe at the back line. We'll talk more about that later. Evening to Ashley, evening to Ryan as well. Freezing, he says. Evening to Colin as well. I'm not worried. One little bit about that is it Lancashire, Seb? You're the northern correspondent. Mancunia, so I don't know what it is. Lancashire, we'll go with it. We'll stick with Colin. We have a great record against them over the years at Portman Road. We will definitely refer to that as well, won't we?
Let me just jump in. Sorry, I must just give a shout out to Colin. I bumped into him at Tottenham. Great to meet you, Colin. And he mentioned that Spurs away was his 125th ground that he's done, which is absolutely phenomenal. Wow. So great work, Colin. Keep it up.
That's doing the 92 and then doing a victory lap afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
Horse Roller's here, Lynn's here. Hope blood pressure can stand Sunday. Matt is here. Although this match is not officially classed as a night match, it'll definitely feel like one. Under the lights at Portman Road v Man United. This is what it's about. And we will talk about games of history, Seb, but Portman Road under the lights generally, certainly after the last few seasons, real 12th man advantage, isn't it?
Love it. Yeah, I've not been able to go to many night games. The Sunderland game back in January was a 5:30 kickoff, so that was kind of my night experience last time. And me and Mikey sat here so many times after night games last season, kind of bemoaning the fact that we couldn't get back for them, because Portman Road under the lights is very, very special. We know the atmosphere this season has just gone up a notch to a complete another level, and aren't all the lights new? So I presume it's going to look even better than normal. You and me did the tour about, was it 6 weeks ago now? And they were saying how you have to have the first couple of rows of seats lit up for the cameras and stuff they were saying. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it looks with the lighting upgrade as well.
It'll be the light will be bouncing over that glass screen in front of you. Bring the sunglasses, Seb. Rando is doing his bit as well. Thank you, Rando, for the super chat. I super chatted before Spurs victory, so it only feels right that I do it again. Bless you, Rando, for the £5 super chat. You can do likewise if you're watching on YouTube, but as always, a thumbs up, very much appreciated. If you're listening on Podland, we love you too as well. Please give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice, and a review even better. But Rando doing his bit, that's what we want to see. Let's do a bit of a news recap, shall we, Seb? Because we did the flagship show last week. A few bits and pieces. The fans forum Tuesday, and any highlights? Chris Rand, I thought, friend of the pod, Telegram VIP, asked her a really pertinent question, at least in my mind, on the media output and Town TV. So that was good to see that addressed. But is it difficult to find things to be critical at the moment? I guess it is.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the two big takeaways I kind of took from the evening were a new sponsor sounds like it's fairly imminent. Obviously, Ed Sheeran's done this is fourth season, I think, isn't it? Fourth season. Contacted us at a time when we had Magical Vegas on the front of our shirts. Wasn't very happy about that, and obviously gave his support for a few years. And it sounds like we're imminently going to be announcing something bigger now that Ed has kind of bought into the group and become part of a part owner of the club. Sounds like he's going to have an event at Portman Road, which is exciting, as is Fabio Wardley. Apparently, we should see hopefully a fight there and an Ed Sheeran concert in the not too distant future. And I guess the big announcement for ITFC Women was that they're going to do another home game. Was it Chatham was it March this year? Wasn't it 10,000 they got through the doors? Was it? So yeah, you're looking at the March international break again, March 23rd, I think it is, isn't it? They're playing Plymouth at home, which could be a very celebratory occasion if the ladies keep up the current form. So that's exciting as well. So great to see the transparency from the club. Great to see them all sat there. I didn't realize it had been almost over a year, I think, since the last one of these. It felt like it was only a few months ago, and it's great that we have so much interaction, so much communication with the club now after so many years of complete radio silence. And as you say, it is very hard to kind of be critical at the moment because everything is brilliant.
Ryan mentions the season ticket waiting list. It was quite interesting, the stat. I'm trying to remember who it was who said usually there's quite a churn of season ticket holders who give up their season tickets every season in the summer. I think he said 5 people relinquish their season tickets, which is just crazy, isn't it? So a sign of where things are at. And as Ryan mentioned, a waiting list coming soon. Continuing the thought on ITFC Women, worth drawing attention to their game this weekend, second round of the Women's FA Cup away at #. Lots of narrative around that game as well. Town 4-2 winners against Oxford, really daunting fixture going into that one, Seb, behind twice. But I don't know if you've seen Lucy O'Brien's second goal that Lucy O'Brien scored. All of the goals are on socials. Cuts in from the edge of the box and curls around past the keeper, and then in one-on-one in 90th minute to make it 4-2. So a big confidence booster to beat Oxford. # have beaten Town this season, though. The only team to do so, admittedly, in the League Cup at the Martello Ground in Felixstowe. This one is at #. They play in Averley. And then they'll play them in the league the week after as well. So cliche, put a marker down. But I think Joe and the girls will be looking to get a bit of revenge for that cup defeat, the League Cup defeat, because it's a bit of a grotty game, to be honest. We didn't really show the best of ourselves, but with that league game coming up, definitely want to do that. And the game's been moved to a 3 p.m. kickoff. There were a few people, because the cups are usually a 1 p.m, Seb. they've nudged it to 3 p.m., which means anyone hoping they could just dash up the A12 and get most of the Man United game is going to be unlucky there. So if you're not aware of that, 3 p.m. kickoff on Sunday for the women's game at #. But we wish them all the best in the cup. Really good pedigree in that competition. But the league definitely the real quiz this season. Do you want to give us a mention on fans supporting food banks? Obviously doing brilliant work, and they are, bless them, will be out in the wind and rain. I think it is on Sunday, Seb.
Fair play to them. It's the collection date for the month of November, the Man United game. It's fans supporting food banks. Adjusted time for the adjusted kickoffs. They're going to be around from 1:30 until 4:00, both in the fan zone and, as always, opposite Planet Blue. Bit of a Christmas appeal, bit of a Christmas theme this time. They're after Christmas selection boxes, Christmas biscuits, and if you can donate any kind of warm winter clothing. It would all be vastly appreciated. All details available at ITFC_FSF on X or Twitter if you're still young. Great work. Please support them if you can.
They might be on Blue Sky by now. We are on Blue Sky. If you haven't,
what's Blue Sky? Is that another one? Is that
wow? Do I get to? This is the new Twitter. It's the people who made Twitter, who were kicked out by Elon, have created Blue Sky. It's been around for a while, but people are now flocking to it. So if you are on Blue Sky, or if you've never heard of Blue Sky like Seb, we are there too. We're maybe not as active. We will put the shows down there. But if you're on Blue Sky, you can find us there. You can find me there as well. And maybe shortly you'll find Seb. And you might find ITFC fans supporting food banks there too. Rolling with the punches, give a shout out to a fellow podcast in the football ITFC space. I've got something to read, so I get it right. Exploring the true value of football clubs. The game we love goes beyond scoring goals. During the series, they explore, celebrate, and challenge the role of football clubs in their local communities. A 6-episode series. It begins already, I think, out there actually, but starts with our low ebb around the early kind of 21, towards the end of the Marcus Evans era. An owner had long given up, and the club was mired in their words, mediocrity and misery on and off the pitch. But as we know, following the change of ownership, the club transformed. Series details that transformation, relives the spectacular back-to-back promotion seasons, but also dip into the past to highlight the damage that poorly run clubs can do to the local community that we've talked about plenty on this podcast as well. The series, a mixture of interviews with people connected to the town and the club, some archive footage woven together to explore the club's stagnation, decline, and glorious rebirth. Rolling with the punches. You can find them where you get your podcasts. And I don't think they're on X, but I think they are on some social media, certainly Insta. So give that a look. We've got to 13 minutes without talking about Man United. Let's talk about Man United. We mentioned a lot of the narrative around it, around the manager, but I guess we grew up in the Alex Ferguson era, didn't we, Seb? And Man United were just a beast, weren't they? Just relentless. Maybe towards the end of Ferguson's tenure, although he bowed out with a title win, didn't he, in the end?
Yeah, the year he signed Van Persie, they won it, and then he bowed out, yeah.
And since then, as you expect with a manager who is, has been not only just a tactical, a coach, but probably had his involvement in all facets of the operation of the football club. When those kind of people had it to a lesser extent with Wenger at Arsenal, it's difficult to figure out what goes on. But a series of ownership situations there too. It's not the same club as it was in the 90s, but from a global reach perspective, football fans anywhere in the world, they know Man United, don't they?
Yeah, biggest club in the world, aren't they? Got to be up there with Barcelona and Real Madrid, but for me, they are the biggest. And Ruben Amorim is in. Erik ten Hag is out. Amorim is the 6th permanent manager to try and bring the club back to where they kind of think they belong after the departure of Sir Alex Ferguson in 2013. They've actually had 10 managers since then. They had a few caretakers as well.
Give it gigs till end of the season. Sorry,
give it gigs. Although a few managers did win things, Louis van Gaal won an FA Cup, Mourinho won the Europa League and a League Cup.
Ten Hag
obviously, won a League Cup 2 seasons ago and the FA Cup unexpectedly last season. They're not the trophies that United fans want to be fighting it out for, are they? They want to be, league challengers, Champions League, getting late into the competition, semi-finalists, finalists, etc., like they had for so many years under Sir Alex Ferguson. And we'll discuss the off-field kind of stuff that's maybe starting to move in the right direction after a few years in the doldrums. But it's up to Ruben Amorim now to try and kind of, he's got 6 months left of this season to try and instill his philosophies starting on Sunday. And I guess they'll be more positive again that they can look to build. And I think the difference is this time, whereas, Van Gaal, Mourinho, David Moyes, they didn't really have that off-field setup behind them. At least Ruben Amorim is coming in now to a club that is perhaps more progressive and forward-thinking in terms of key appointments in the off-field position to support the manager and kind of help. Like you said, Ferguson would have run the whole thing back in the 20 years ago, whenever it was he was at his peak. And it's important these days that the manager can't do everything. They're head coaches and they have this off-field structure around them to support them. And I guess Amorim will feel kind of buoyed that he's coming into that now rather than some of the predecessors.
Our mate Sam asked this question: would you have preferred Ten Hag to still be in the dugout? I think
it's really good.
Would.
Yeah, it's a really good question, isn't it? Because I guess if Ten Hag's coming to town, you probably know you're going to get 20 shots off against Man United, given how open they were through central midfield. You'd fancy yourself to get a couple. But I guess the other issue is that he was always capable of pulling out a result when he needed to against, let's face it, weaker opposition. I guess the big plus for Ruben Amorim, we'll discuss what they're likely to do tactics-wise, is that this is, for me, has kind of been the easiest research I've ever done in 4 years of pre-match, because there is so much information, because it's Manchester United. But equally, it's the hardest because no one really knows. They've released a few training videos. There's a few articles saying about how he'll definitely instill his 3-4-3 straight from the off. But let's be honest, until an hour and 15 before kickoff on Sunday, nobody really knows how they're going to line up and what they're going to do. So a bit of a strange one this time. Thank
you to David for the €20 super sticker. Always a great supporter of the podcast. David, thank you so much. We appreciate your support. As we said, if you want to do likewise, there's a button for it in the YouTube chat. But as always, thumbs up, spread the word, retweets. We appreciate that's good currency for us as well. If you're keeping an eye on the FCAs, let us know if we've won or not. By the way, we are not there. No one has gone from Blue Monday. We are that miserable. So if something happens and we won a podcast award, do let us know, because we can reveal it live to the nation. We won't win. That's why we're here. Let's talk about the state of play for Amorim coming in. Because they're not too far away from us in the league table, but it's such a weird situation. Really, good defensive record, but shocking goals scored record, chance creation, all that kind of stuff. They picked up wins, but it's just so inconsistent. And players, we'll talk more about the personnel there, but I just look at Man United, and it's a generalization, but there are a lot of players who are 9 out of 10 one week, but 4 out of 10 the week after. And I guess to an extent, the manager pays the price for that. But we certainly heard certain outspoken pundits with and without Man United affiliations who have mentioned the mindset perhaps of some of them. Give us the kind of key stats really of where they stand.
Well, it's a strange season, isn't it? Because they currently sit 13th on 15 points, but they're only 4 points off the Champions League places. The league is so close. It's a bit like Spurs 2 weeks ago, isn't it? Spurs are currently 10th, but if they'd have beaten us on that Sunday, I think they would have gone third or second or something. So it's a really bunched up league. But the facts are they are sat in 13th, played 11 games, won 4, drawn 3, lost 4, scored 12 goals. That's 12 goals scored in 11 league games, conceded 12. They're the 4th lowest goal scorers in the league. But as you just mentioned, in terms of players' character and stuff, since Ten Hag left, they're unbeaten. They've won 3. They've had 3 wins and a draw in the 4 competitions that diving cheat Van Nistelrooy took charge from. So you could, and Bruno Fernandes has suddenly started to score goals and get assists again. So the manager always pays the price for these things, but as many pundits have said on many Sky Sports and other other footballing podcasts, at some point you do have to maybe question the mentality of the players, don't you? Not all these managers can be so bad that not be able to get a tune out of these kind of squads. There's a huge issue around chance creation. They've created 32 big chances this season, which is 9th in the league. So they're creating kind of mid-table levels of chances, but they've missed 26 of them, which is the worst in the league. So real issues. I mean, the lack of a playing style clearly caught up with Ten Hag. I remember, I think it was a Monday Night Football, Jamie Carragher asking Gary Neville, saying, what is Man United's style? They don't pass out from the back. They're not long ball. They're not counter-attacking. They're not really high press. And I guess for 2.5 years, yes, he won a couple of trophies, but that eventually that kind of stuff does catch up with you. And that's what Amorim really needs to kind of instill from day one, a clear playing style, a clear philosophy, and kind of get a tune out of these players before they can come to the, the windows when they can look to strengthen. Their last 5 in the league is 2 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat. So not overly consistent. They can't really get going. Away form, 10th in the league, 5 points from 5 games. They are the second lowest goal scorers away from home with 5. You found this stat. They've only scored 2 goals from open play away from home. We have 4, to give you an idea. But they are quite miserly on the road in terms of their defence. They are the joint second best defensive record with only 4 goals against. Their last 5 away were a win at Southampton, which a game you should expect them to win. 2 draws, Villa away, which is probably a reasonable point. Palace away would be disappointing, given how Palace started the season. And 2 defeats, West Ham with that's a very questionable penalty, that one, and Brighton away. So, yeah, this real inconsistency is exactly why Ten Hag got sacked. And for me, it wasn't really a surprise he didn't make it past Christmas. He won the FA Cup. There was this whole thing about a big strategic review, and they were going to kind of, look at all areas of the club. And I presume if he had lost the FA Cup final, he'd have been fired in the week directly after it. They kind of didn't seem to know what to do. They bumbled around a little bit. They extended his contract. But I think when Van Nistelrooy joined as an assistant manager, everyone kind of said, well, there's Man United's next caretaker. And when, as we know from Game Changer, when a new group come in and invest money in a club and kind of appoint off-field positions, they always want their own man, don't they?
They do, but you wonder whether Ruud van Nistelrooy is the kind of coach they maybe needed. We will talk about Amorim, very highly coveted, and you wonder whether there was an element of United getting there before someone else came along, and maybe that was the plan all along. But I agree with you that renewing Ten Hag's contract in the summer seemed a bit strange. I mean, it alleviated a huge amount of concern for us with Kieran McKenna being linked with that job. So I guess in that respect, happy days. But I got the sense under Van Nistelrooy, I haven't seen a huge amount of it, but the Leicester game, I saw the goals for that. And 3-0 winners in that one, converting chances, taking chances. I get that it's Leicester at home, but maybe a bit of time under Van Nistelrooy, who we know to our cost, knows how to put the ball in the net. And I just wonder whether he deserved a bit of a chance, but maybe it's a kind of a short-term thing, a very brief new manager bounce, and maybe it wasn't sustainable. But yeah, the whole Ten Hag situation seemed to me to be avoidable. Van Nistelrooy obviously saw the iceberg. He saw the trip to Portman Road and got out there as quickly as possible to avoid any embarrassment walking up the touchline. And Ruben Amorim comes in with a. It's a bit of a shame Van Nistelrooy's not there, though, isn't he? He deserves the bollocking.
Booze he would have got.
I've waited 22 years.
Yeah, I can't really remember any other players who I just want to boo so much. I've not had a chance to do for 22 years, like you said. That would have been funny because he might have been thinking, well, it's quite a hostile atmosphere. What have I done wrong here? He might not even realise he did anything wrong, and I think it would be quite entertaining
by a lot of clubs like that. Football fans have no memories. And we talk about the West Ham defeat. Yes, there's some mitigating circumstances with the VAR penalty in that, but Garnacho misses a couple of open, not open goals, some really presentable chances. Fernandes misses a few as well. And then Leicester, Ten Hag's gone, and who scores the goals, Seb?
Yeah, he's back amongst it. So their last league game before the international break was a 3-0 victory over Leicester. Bruno Fernandes has remembered how to score a goal, hadn't scored all season. Remembering how to score an own goal by Christensen, and then Alejandro Garnacho with the goals. 51% possession, 0.76 XG, which does kind of back up the theory that they're not great at creating good quality chances. 13 shots, 3 on target. But as we always see, when a new manager, or we don't under previous regimes, but normally when a new manager comes in, you do get that initial bounce. And I think that's all that was. And I don't think you could take a chance on appointing Van Nistelrooy if someone like Amorim is being chased by other clubs. At that point, let's not forget, it was only this week that Guardiola signed that new deal, and the sporting director is moving to Man City next summer. And I think they might well have thought, if we don't go for it now, he might be off the table next year.
Is that Hugo Viana?
Hugo Viana, the ex-Newcastle. Yeah,
signed by Bobby Robson. So there's a rehash of the state of play on it. We've talked about the ownership. This podcast, Harry from Bath, we quote regularly: owners relegate clubs. Owners cause clubs to be a little bit haphazard is probably the nice way of putting it. The Glazers, everyone knows about those, and then Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I guess that situation will sort itself out. It's still Man United, a global force, and financially not going to struggle to fund what's going on. But it's more, Seb, the football technical appointments. Can you talk us through those that may be interesting to folk?
Yes, obviously the Glazers were there since 2005. It was a heavily leveraged buyout, so they just basically piled extra debt onto the club. It was debt-free when they took it over, and I think the latest set of figures were over £770 million worth of debt. But under Ferguson, they could just leave him to it. He would appoint a new assistant manager every 2 to 3 years, Steve McLaren, the guy
Carlos
that fell out with Roy Keane, that's it, Carlos Queiroz. And it all kind of ticked along nicely. And then as clubs evolved and these off-field strategic appointments became so crucial, they didn't do any of that. And it wasn't until they kind of advertised in early 2023, the Glazers kind of suggested they might be ready to sell, or were certainly ready for external investment, and it went on for ages and ages. And so Jim Ratcliffe is finally, his Enios company buys 25% of the club, but he's given total charge of all footballing operations. And then suddenly he can go out and make these appointments. So Omar Barada was pinched from Man City as CEO. He couldn't start until the summer just gone. Neither could Dan Ashworth, the highly rated director of football, who they pinched from Newcastle as he came through at Brighton, spent time with the FA, was kind of appointed. Sorry?
Was he
West Brom? Yeah, was kind of doing good things under the new owners in Newcastle. They went in and nicked him. They nicked Jason Wilcox, appointed technical director from Southampton. Did that story break on the night of the 3-2 game, or have I imagined that?
Yeah, I think it did. He was at Man City before Southampton as well, I think.
He was. So they've kind of gone out and appointed key people in key positions to help support the manager. He's Amorim's come in, and I think he's bought 5 with a 6th pending, kind of coaches and analysts and people from Sporting Lisbon. So he's bringing a load of his people with him. Van Nistelrooy's departed, so there's a break from kind of the old regime, but these off-field positions are now appointed by the people who are now running the football side of it, and Amorim kind of goes in with a full backing for everyone behind him.
And do you want to talk about Amorim? A name that people know probably because he's now the Man United boss. People might know a little bit about Sporting, and people who know their European football obviously won't need telling. But for the rest of us, Seb, do you want to give us his record? Because it's impressive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. 39 years old, so noticeably younger than any other Man United appointment of recent times. Joined from Sporting Lisbon, has a record of 2.29 points per game from 231 games in charge there. He has a 100% record in the league in Portugal so far this season. He's been there for 3 and a bit years, I think it is. He's won 2 league titles in that time. The first 2 league titles in, I think, nearly 20 years. Portuguese League Cup as well. Had a playing career in Portuguese football at Belenenses and Benfica before retiring at a relatively early age. He retired at 32, so obviously older than McKenna, but you've got one of these kind of, players that retire earlier than normal and can look to get a few years coaching under their belt. 14 senior caps for Portugal. Had links with
the same team as Ronaldo, I would guess. Man United,
presumably, yeah, coming through, yeah. 14 senior caps for Portugal. I just said that, haven't I? Links with Liverpool this summer. They kind of opted against him because they didn't want to switch to a back 3 system. They felt they had a squad in place for a 4 at the back, and he is very, very wedded to this 3-4-3. There was the weird thing with West Ham where it was leaked that he'd spoken to West Ham when Moyes was still the manager, and then Amorim kind of came out in the Portuguese press and apologised for those meetings going on, and they hired Julian Lopetegui, which looks like a masterstroke at the moment. So he's kind of been the hot property. Obviously, we talk about McKenna being an incredibly hot prospect in international European management. Amorim is certainly that, and yeah, I think they've gone for him now because come the summer, he could have well been off somewhere else.
I agree. We will talk about that system, and we'll, as we've caveated throughout this podcast, we are taking a huge punt on what we think might happen, but it would be a surprise that someone who has got a well-known style of play and system doesn't try and instill that straight away. Even if it's against Ipswich in the Premier League, you kind of think, if that's where we want to go, we may as well get used to it straight away, even if there's a couple of iffy results, and hopefully that plays into Town's favour. Talking of history against Town, we've already alluded to some of the moments in Ipswich Town past. Recommend the Blue Monday Rewind show with Craig and Dave that came out earlier in the week, the most recent match where we bitch about Van Nistelrooy again, but also some victories, and one from further back in Ipswich Town history that is pretty famous in club folklore. But the record probably goes the way we'd expect it to, Seb. overall.
Unsurprisingly, yeah, 19 wins for Town, 9 draws between the two, and 29 wins for United. Obviously, go and check out Blue Monday Rewind with Craig and Dave, looking back on our last win over them in September 1994 and the diving, cheating Van Nistelrooy penalty in April 2002. What are your other memories of it? Obviously, we've got the famous 1-1, the first home game of the 2001 season with, it was Fabian Wilness after, was it 5-6 minutes? World-class assist by David Johnson. Jim Magilton trying to chip Barthez from range. Johnson's header in the second half. And I guess for me, I wasn't really going in the early to mid-90s. So for me, it's the 1-1 draw and it's the 2-0 League Cup game in 97 where the shirt, oh yeah, of course, actually you're wearing the shirt. Yeah, Tarico from what felt like about 40 yards out, yeah. And I don't know, was it Alex Matthew? I can't remember on the night, yeah. So they're my kind of two overriding memories. Anything to add?
I'm wearing the shirt to kind of harness the spirit of 97. The weather forecast looks pretty grim. It will be dark and it will be windy and it will be wet on Sunday. I'm conjuring lots of thoughts that maybe history will be an omen for us, a positive omen on Sunday. My first Ipswich Man United game was the 93-94 season when I think Kiwomia scored. I think it was a keeper error. Schmeichel made an error. Kiwomia kind of taps into basically an empty net, but then Man United won 2-1 and we were really toiling down the bottom of the league. And I believe, and fans of the right vintage might be able to help me, I think there was a McGiven out protest on the pitch full time. I might have got that wrong, but I do recall people storming the pitch after defeat to that one. One of the things that used to happen as well in the 90s, Seb, and you can see it in the 3-2 Paul Mason game in 94-95, as I recall that Man United fans used to get tickets in the home end. The away end would sell out and they'd be all around Portman Road. That's not going to happen on Sunday. The more likelihood is that there'll be Town fans towards the away end, won't there? Because I think they've sold us some tickets back. But yeah, always a big game. And the game under lights, Wilness under lights, right at the kick started that campaign, didn't it?
Alex Ferguson coming out afterwards didn't say it felt like it was the old ground before the two behind the stands behind the goal were redeveloped. So I think the capacity was 22,000 and he was saying it felt like 35, 40,000 that night. That was an excellent night and it really made us realize that we could compete that season. And obviously that season went crazy after that. But yeah, a really impressive night, which is why I'm really excited. It's a night game. I know it's not a night game, but you know what I mean? It's going to be a dark
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Some memories from the chat. Neil talking about the Cup third round loss, 86, Neil, maybe a little bit later. I think that might have been televised as, if I remember rightly. 2-1 Frankie Yallop says ITFC Dan. Mike Salmon's socks. Love that. Good on Mike Salmon. Wilness under the lights. Yeah, Neil mentioning Yallop scoring 2 screamers in a week. Again, Tottenham to Man United. Omens, positive omens. That's what we want. Symmetry. Tony Humes goal. There you go. There's a shout out for Tony Humes fans all out there from Neil. So thank you for that. We mentioned the managerial situation. We talked about the ownership situation, the off-field appointments, but we have flagged the kind of inconsistency of performance of the players. Some big money spent at United. As we say, the resources are there to spend money, and they have. Is it fair to say they've not had value back from that investment, Seb?
Very much so. And that's kind of the theme I would suggest for the last probably decade at the club. So this summer they've gone out and signed Lenny Yoro, who is a very highly rated 18-year-old centre-back. He came in from Lille for £52 million. They actually, believe it or not, beat Real Madrid to that signing. They were sniffing around him as well. He's not featured yet because he's broke a metatarsal in pre-season, but he was one of their big money signings. Manuel Ugarte, a defensive midfielder who played under Ruben Amorim at Sporting before moving to PSG. He's joined for 42 million quid from PSG. Matthias de Ligt, very, very highly rated. He was one of the centre-backs in that great Ajax side that got to the semi-finals of the Champions League when Spurs beat them. Lucas Moura scored like in the 96th minute, whatever it was. He's kind of had a move to Juve, had a move to Bayern Munich, not really worked out. They picked him up for £38 million from Bayern. Joshua Zirkzee, centre-forward, Netherlands international, 37 million quid from Bologna. Really looks like he's struggling to get up to pace with the demands of the Premier League. One player who has been a really good signing so far is Nusayr Mazraoui, 12 million quid from Bayern Munich. He can play either side in kind of a full-back or a wing-back role. He even popped up as a number 10 recently. So he's looking like a good buy, but so far the rest of them have taken a bit of time to settle in. They moved some people on as well. Kind of
it feels like, I'm going to call it, and this is probably me taking a stretch. I think there's some scapegoating going on with these outs. I look at Wan-Bissaka going to West Ham. I don't think there's anything wrong with Wan-Bissaka. I think he's a really excellent Premier League level right back. I don't see anything wrong with Scott McTominay's midfield role. Jadon Sancho, awesome at Dortmund, signs for United, can't do anything. Sometimes the problem is you. And I kind of feel like a few people have been chucked under the bus here, Seb. But give us, and there's a few others have departed recently as well who came in for big money and maybe sold at a loss or gone on a free. Do you want to give us kind of a rogues gallery? Go on, give us some names who have departed under a cloud.
It's crazy to think that a club the size of United, with United's turnover, I think their income is like north of £700 million a year. It's crazy to think a club like United are having FFP issues, which they are.
Oh, okay.
And I think some of these moves may have been kind of designed to kind of help those situations, because Scott McTominay was homegrown, 25 million quid to Napoli. I think he was a perfectly decent kind of squad player. Mason Greenwood went to Marseille for 21 million pounds. We know the reasons for that. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, like you say, 15 million pounds to West Ham. They signed him for 50 million quid from Crystal Palace. Limited offensively, but very good defensively. Probably another solid squad player, but they've taken a 35 million pound loss on him. Jadon Sancho, as you mentioned, they spent the summer of 2020, was it, going hell for leather for him, didn't get him. He joins the same summer as Ronaldo and Raphael Varane, currently been loaned out, went on loan for the second half of last season to Dortmund after the big fallout with Ten Hag. Didn't recapture his previous Dortmund form there, but he was playing regularly in a side that got to the Champions League final, been on loan to Chelsea, started well at Chelsea, but has disappeared in recent weeks. Big earners, Raphael Varane went to Como and subsequently retired through injury. Anthony Martial was released probably 2-3 years after they probably should have sold him to bring some money in. And as I said, they are a side that just player trades really, really badly. To give you an idea of some of the figures here, Paul Pogba obviously was released by Man United, went to Juve. United signed him back for £90 million in the summer of, I think it was 2016. He was then released on a free. They spent £80 million as the base fee for Anthony. There are add-ons on top of that for Anthony, who is, Anthony's been incredibly criticised for the last couple of years. Harry Maguire, £80 million, is out of contract this summer. So he's potentially one where they will either sell for 20-25 million in January or let go on a free. Jadon Sancho, we've already discussed, he was a £70 million signing, currently on loan at Chelsea. Lukaku was sold with a £10 million loss after a couple of seasons. Di Maria was signed for 62 million from Real Madrid, sold for 52. They took a £10 million loss on him after a year. And Casemiro, 60 million quid plus 10 million in add-ons, rumoured 350 grand a week on a 4-year deal at the age of 30. There's no resale value there. Yes, he was good in the first season, but I think most people would agree that they've kind of struggled a little. He struggled over the last sort of 18 months or so to get back to the player that he perhaps was. So, yeah, I guess with the new off-field appointments, Ashworth, Wilcox and Barada, they will look to kind of engage much more actively in player trading, become much more profitable, but they've really done it badly for the last few years, which is why they've got these FFP concerns.
And shout out to Despicable, who I'm guessing is a Man United fan, who's given us maybe an insight there about some of the player trading to bring players in by getting players out. So fair enough. Appreciate the nod there. Worth mentioning, Casemiro has a bit of a rick in him every now and then. One of a few players papped at Madison Square Garden as well this week, but no comment on that. Let's talk about the 3-4-3. If I was to ask you on a podcast whether you think it'll go for that 3-4-3, which I'm going to do now, he's going to go for it, isn't he?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, you have to. If you're being hired to do a job to transform the way the club play, when one of the major criticisms of your predecessor is that he doesn't have a coherent identity playing style, he's going to impose his from day one. Yes, he's got challenges. They've had 13 first-team squad players away on international duty. He's only had 10 days, probably only 3 or 4 days to work with some of the players, given they wouldn't have arrived back until relatively late. But going into a club this size, he's going to have to instill. There's no point in him going and trying to change what's worked so well for him in Portugal. I think he launches the 3-4-3 straight away.
Do you want to give us some more insights about that, or should we talk about key players? So, but I'm clocking that we're at 40 minutes already, so we need to.
Yeah, I'll go quickly for you. So it's high possession. The Sporting were top with 66% possession so far this season. High pressing. It's a very high line. If you can bring up my tactical iPad, I will quickly show people what I think he will do. So this is how they lined up for Sporting. This is their average positions, and then as normal, this becomes their kind of most touches on the pitch. So as you will see, the centre backs, both wide centre backs, kind of go really wide to the touch lines, and the central centre back kind of stays more as an old-fashioned sweeper. The two fullbacks then go crazy, the wing backs, I should say, go crazy high. So the number 20, I presumed he was a left winger, but he's not. He's the left wing back. And the 57 at the top, the right wing back, they are basically out and out kind of winger strikers. You've then got the two centre mids who will drop deep and protect that central, the kind of central three centre backs. And that leaves the front three to be able to do that. So as we've discussed, the front three are the ones that are kind of most interesting because they will have two kind of inverted 10s behind. Well, he's got Victor Gyökeres at the moment, but those kind of two players do like to cut inside and play more narrow. United is a squad that have got an awful lot of quality wide players that we'll discuss shortly. So it's going to be really interesting where he fits all these people in.
The old 1-4-5 formation.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about Ange doing similar, weren't we? Let's take a break briefly. Let's hear from our friends at Atwells. We'll come back, talk about some of the key names that you'll know anyway, but we'll try and chuck some stats at you as well to give you the bigger picture there. And then we'll talk about how Kieran McKenna might deal with it. But yeah, here's some words from our friends at Atwells.
Blue Monday is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends at Atwells Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for work on property or business law. Their client care has repeatedly been recognised as outstanding, and they are people-focused with a plain English approach which sets them apart. They have offices in Ipswich, Colchester and London, and to find out more, head to atwells.com.
Thank you to Atwells for their support this season, and also One Stop badges too. You can find if you can find us an away game or a home game, and we have badges in our pocket, we won't always do, then please do ask for a Blue Monday One Stop badge, and to get one for your own brand, charity or company, hit the link in the description for 10% off. How can we do this swiftly, Seb? Because I think some of these names are pretty well known. Give me two or three names there that you think we should keep a lookout for.
I'm not going to mention Bruno Fernandes because everyone knows about him. So,
but
for me,
do your comparison. You've got to say who you've compared to.
Oh, of course, yes. So Bruno Fernandes, captain, 2 goals and 3 assists so far this season, back on form after the departure of Ten Hag. I looked at his heat map and he literally pops up all over the pitch to pick the ball up. And I suddenly had a thought, he's basically the Man United Alan Judge. There you go, folks. I bet you never thought you'd hear Alan Judge and Bruno Fernandes mentioned in the same podcast. Averages 70 touches per game, so ridiculously high levels of involvement. Alejandro Garnacho, 3 goals, 1 assist, plays off the left in the old 4-3-3 under Ten Hag.
One of these spiky players that I talked about. 9 out of 10 one week and 4 out of 10 the week after.
He is, but he is class. He is quality.
Yeah.
So he'll either be repurposed as the left wing back / left attacker, or might have to kind of repurpose himself as a number 10. Marcus Rashford has received criticism for being away in New York at the Knicks, and I think he was in Portland, in Oregon, over the international break. 1 goal, 1 assist. I think he might start through the middle if I was a betting man. I think he might get the nod through the middle ahead of Højlund and ahead of Xerxes, simply because he's been around for longer with Amorim learning the system. Andre Onana, 5 clean sheets, is the second highest in the league so far this season, and 4 goals prevented is the highest.
Underrated, I think, Onana. I think he's
started a bit dodgily, didn't he?
Yeah.
They signed him for the playing out from the back thing, which they then didn't really do. But he's kind of settled down in the last kind of year to 15 months, and looks like a solid buy now, doesn't he? They've got some issues around injuries and stuff. Harry Maguire is unlikely to be fit. Victor Lindelof limped off with injury over the international break. Professional bastard Lisandro Martinez could well be back. He had a back injury in the last league game, missed Argentina's game, but I would imagine he will play, and I think he's quite crucial to them in that left-sided centre-back role. And then Lenny Yoro, Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, and Kobbie Mainoo are all back in training as well.
Magic. Suddenly the new magic comes in, and we want to be seen having been hiding in the storage cupboard for the last few weeks under Ten Hag. We are, because we don't really know the situation, we've given you a bit of stats and we've given you the away record, but any key insight that you want to share Seb?
Just something that jumped out for me. Maybe prepare for a bit of a central midfield ding-dong. Manuel Ugarte is top of the league for tackles won per game this season with an average of 4. His likely central midfield partner, Casemiro, I think Kobbie Mainoo will be on the bench given he's been out injured. So Casemiro might well start alongside Ugarte. He's second highest in the league for tackles won per game with 3. And Sam Morsy averages 1.5. So prepare yourselves, hopefully, for a bit of a midfield ding-dong.
Ding-dong. My usual, this is now, it's not Rich's insight, it's Richard helping you in advance figure out who you need to be pissed off with when decisions don't go away. It's Anthony Taylor from Manchester, or Greater Manchester. And people might be a little, well, he's an elite referee, so you shouldn't be worrying about that situation. But actually, he has got some really interesting run-ins with Man United over the last few seasons. What have I got? He sent off Casemiro and didn't award Man United a penalty in their draw with Southampton in March 23. Ten Hag bitched and moaned about that. There was an issue with the 3-1 defeat against Arsenal. And a former referee, Keith Hackett, claimed Ten Hag's irritation was justified with the official. Also had the misfortune to be the man in the middle when United lost 3-0 to Liverpool in September. So basically the referees, I don't think it's going to be good for either of us, frankly, but the idea that might support Man United, there is some history that would suggest perhaps otherwise. So that's Man United. I think we've given our best shot at trying to predict the future at crystal ball gazing, but frankly, we are speculating, but it does feel like the new manager, if he's got any confidence in his own abilities, is going to try and instill that new system. That might present some doubt. It might present some opportunity, as might the fact it's an away game at Portman Road, small pitch, hostile atmosphere. Who knows? We will talk about how Ipswich might approach this shortly, but a few bits and pieces to mention. We mentioned the support of Atwells and one-stop badges. Please do give us a thumbs up if you're still watching. If you join us, if on demand as well, you can still give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that. A subscribe and podcast app of choice. 5-star ratings very much appreciated. We are back on the Flagship show on Sunday at the slightly later time of 8:30. So 8:30 kickoff on Sunday with, I think, the usual suspects, Ben, Dave and Joe. And I believe Ben will be doing a watch along for those of you unable to attend the game in person. And that if he is doing that, will go down his channel, and it will also go down the Blue Monday channel as well. So keep a lookout on your subscription feeds on YouTube for that, and get involved in the conversation with Ben if you're unable to get to the match in person. And as we've said, plenty of content this week to cover Man United. We've got the Blue Monday Rewind show from Tuesday, the Premier League predictions from Wednesday. And feel free to watch this as many times as you like. It's like it's like an onion. There's layers and there's Easter eggs and stuff. There isn't Easter eggs, I'm lying, but there's stuff that we put out there that maybe you didn't register the first time. Seb's brilliance it kind of washed over you, so you need to watch it again. Do watch us again, and the view numbers will appreciate that too. Good. I think I've done all the business we need to do for that. So let's talk about Town. And I think there was a little bit of a question mark over Amari Hutchinson. There is some internet chatter about other players, which I'm not going to go near. But I think we've generally got a clean bill of health from the international situation. Do you want to give us, the guys talked about it on Sunday, but do you want to just remind us who did what, Seb?
Yeah, so Sammy Szmodic and Dara O'Shea each made a couple of appearances for Ireland. Liam Delap started the first England under-21 game and then came off the bench against the Netherlands in the second one. Amari Hutchinson didn't feature in either game. By all accounts, he was back at Town last weekend, but the England under-21 manager described that as a minor issue, so hopefully he should be good to go. He is a 75% chance of playing on FPL for the feature we're about to discuss. Cameron Burgess made a couple of appearances for Australia. Ara Muric made 2 appearances for Kosovo, quite dramatic appearances. And Kieran Slicker celebrated his first call-up to the Scotland squad, didn't feature. Neither did Ali Al-Hamadi for Iraq. And I guess the question marks will be, McKenna in the last press conference said he expected Tuanzebe, Greaves and Jack Taylor all back after the international break. We know Tuanzebe is back already. Greaves, I assume Burgess has been excellent since he came in, but for me, it's a bit like last season when Edmondson would come in every now and again. For me, Greaves comes, assuming he's fit, Greaves comes back in alongside O'Shea. I don't think there's too much debate there. I think Burgess has done really, really well, but I think that Greaves is the kind of the better player. Where
was Burgess playing for Australia? Was it in Australia?
I didn't do the research to that level of detail.
Oh, someone help us out in the chat. If
Yeah,
that's the
let us
case,
know
then
when he
jet lag
when
is
he
a
played and where
major
he
factor.
was. Yeah, if he's in Australia on Tuesday, for example, it's going to be unlikely he'll feature. But even so, if Greaves can make it, then a Greaves plays, doesn't he? Let's be honest.
Otherwise, it's got to be as close to Spurs as possible, isn't it?
I would bring Calvin Phillips back in for Kajust. I thought Kajust was excellent against Spurs. I just think that with their kind of combative central midfield too, and those two wide attackers playing more narrow, one of which will be Bruno Fernandes, I think I'd prefer two defensively minded centre midfielders personally.
Fair enough. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. We'll dip in and out.
But I thought Kajust was superb away at Spurs.
He was, and he didn't play for Sweden, so he's been at the club for a while. There is a lot of debate on, I mean, obviously ITFC Dan asked the question. Hall's gone for Kajust. Colin talking about Greaves coming in, also wants Kajust. Ashley's talking about Anthony Taylor's previous Ipswich Town games. I didn't go there, Ashley, but I'll put it up there on the screen if you want to read it. You can read it. His last game, actually, he's ref one game for us this season. It was at West Ham as well, but we move on. But
I guess the
George,
only other position up for debate is what you do on the right hand side of the three behind the striker. I'd keep Ben Johnson personally.
Yeah, George is going for Morsey Kajust. Let's just finish off that bit very quickly. Greaves says streaky. So I think we've got and Bahrain, according to Neil, for Burgess's international appearances. But streaky saying Kajust and Phillips. So no Morsey.
I can't see it.
I think as Reading says, Reading track's happy to trust McKenna. Yeah, let's go with the manager.
Yes, do that, yeah.
What he says is best. But I would, as I said, keep with as much of the Spurs team as possible, and that includes Ben Johnson, that right wide position, which some pundits were calling a back five. I didn't see it as a back five, but that would be what I'd go for. But keep your thoughts coming in the chat. Probably Greaves for Burgess is the one change that we're thinking of, and you're bringing in Calvin Phillips for Kajust, aren't you? I think it's pretty marginal, but we'll finish with predictions and we'll finish with more of your thoughts on the team. But we can we'll talk about FPL briefly. Oh, what's the point? What is the point? Firstly, thank you to our partners at Brett Vale Golf Club who are supporting the FPL feature, much to Seb's enjoyment and much to my annoyance. They've got plenty of offers for Blue Monday subscribers. Just rock up and say hello from Blue Monday. But yeah, 10 minutes down the road, probably not the kind of time for it. But if you're an all-weather golfer, unlike me, in Constable Country, just down the way, very welcoming experience and a very picturesque golf course by all accounts as well. So do go and support Brett Vale, and there you can find them online, and they've got an Instagram page as well. So thank you to them, and well done to Seb for winning last week or week 11. There you go, 75 points to 67, in the lead on the head-to-head and in the lead on the cumulative score. So well done. I hope you're proud of yourself. What have you?
Easy, isn't it? It's just
here's the winning team for this week. Tell us about it.
I've made that's your team. That's not my team.
Oh well, I'll tell you about mine. Bruno Fernandes was brought in prior to this week, and I was really close to making him vice captain, but I thought Seb will give me crap for it. So I've given my captaincy and my vice captaincy. I hadn't clocked that I've not put Haaland as captain, but
you can't change it now. Everyone's seen it.
It's locked in. So I've got two players with a 75% doubt or 75% chance of playing as captain and vice captain. So that's a mistake. This team will lose. And I wanted to bring in Smodits, by the way, as well, and for Hutchinson, but I needed 200k in the bank and I didn't have it. So this week has been an absolute nightmare. So screw it. What can you do?
I've made no changes because I'm vastly superior at this game. I've kept Salah as my captain. They've got Southampton, which I think it should be a relatively straightforward one for them. I have some doubts as well. 3 of my midfielders have doubts over them: Palmer, Saka, and Hutchinson, but they're all 75%, so I think I'll be all right with them. But yeah, no changes. I've now banked 3 free transfers, which I might start spending next week.
Brilliant. Great. So yeah, we will just skip over this feature. I feel sorry for Brett Vale. We'll figure out a way to compensate them for that. But We'll be back next week to talk about how great Seb is at FPL. Blah, 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 blah. Get your predictions in. We'll go to as many as of them as we can, and any of your lineup selection choices as well. But Seb, talk to me about what you think is going to happen on Sunday. We new Man United system, new manager, lots of circus in the town as we've talked about. But Ipswich on the back of that victory at Spurs, confidence should be high. What say you?
Well, when we did our predictions for this run of game a few weeks ago, we all had to submit it for the flagship show. I did have it down as a defeat, but I'm allowed to change things because I can do what I want. And after the buoyancy of the Spurs away game, let's have it right. Kieran McKenna is probably going to want to win this one more than any game he's probably, apart from maybe Huddersfield at home on the last day of last season, more than any game he's probably managed us for. You know, he's got a personal history with United. He's mentioned at the fans forum, he thinks we're going to give them one hell of a game. And under the lights, Portman Road is a different beast. They have a new manager. They have doubts and concerns over the key players that would fit those kind of centre-back roles. I mean, there's a chance Johnny Evans might line up at the back in a back three, and then you could very easily isolate him and kind of get at him one-on-one. So I am confident. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Ipswich win, with the winner for Ipswich coming after the 80th minute. Cue some scenes.
Can you confirm for me, when was the last time Town played under the lights at Portman Road?
Under the lights?
Under the lights at Portman Road. It was
Can you count the Sunderland game, the 2-1?
Was it Southampton?
Oh, yeah. That would have been ended, but in night time. It was a 5:30 kickoff, but by the time it ended, would that have been
under the lights? I think that was the last time we played under the lights at Portman Road. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I'm chucking all of these positive, things in the mix, as well as the shirt from 97. I think Seb's done a really fantastic job.
Oh, no, you're being called out in the chat. Horse Hollerer and Baron Harvey are mentioning the 0-0 draw against Watford.
Oh, that was crap, wasn't it? And that was, Southampton was pre-Vegas and Watford was, I've jet lagged to crap and came back and watched it. Thanks, guys. Ruined it. But I'd take a 0-0. I think we'd take a 0-0, wouldn't we?
No, play the game. I wouldn't take a draw in this one. Play the game. Bring it on.
And I think one thing, I think someone mentioned it in the chat right at the top, the idea that just because you change a manager, that players who can't perform consistently suddenly do. And there is, of course, the fabled cliched new manager bounce. And of course, you're going to get raised levels, but you're still also going to get the same foibles and failures of these players. They're not suddenly going to become 10% better at playing football. They might try a little bit harder, but if they are crap at doing one thing, they're still going to be crap at doing it against Ipswich under Amorim. So I also feel vaguely positive. I'm not going to predict a win, but when we did our 6-game prediction thing, I think I changed from a defeat to a draw because I felt like there's always a good vibe about us playing Man United at home. I can't wait to talk about the away game.
Quick caveat. So
I'm going to go for a draw. I would take a 0-0, but I would like a 3-3. That'd be good, wouldn't it, on the TV cameras? So there's the thoughts from the Blue Monday panel. What say the live chat? Nick is in there first. He's going for a 3-1. Colin is following suit with your 2-1. Paul, another 3. Blimey. Say you're on an Ipswich Town podcast without saying you're on an Ipswich Town podcast. Eric, a little bit more realistic and reflective of possibly the sentiment in the big wide world. 3-1 loss, but he hopes he's wrong. Lynn's going for a 3-1. Rob's going for a 2-1. Chris, our friend in New Zealand, going for a 2-1 as well. Wow. Streaky, unusually, I made no score prediction for Spurs, but went for the W. Same again Sunday. Streaky knows the score. He's doing his bit for everybody. David Bergen going for a 3-1 to United. Understandable. Neil, 3-2. We love 3-2 for Sky Sports. Lots of 2-1s coming in for Ipswich. There you go. Rando, as I mentioned in Telegram, 3-1 win for us. 2-0 up at half-time. Martinez sent off for getting annoyed with Delap and beating him up. Love the working. Ryan's gone for a 2-1 to lap against a newly structured back three will be fun, he says. Blimey, come on, guys. This is so blue tinted. It's untrue. What have you done, Seb?
This is what it's all about. Come on.
I correctly predicted the 2-1 at Spurs, says Horselorer, so he's doing it again. Welsh Wizard got some of the Blue Monday team in the next fans forum. Would be good. Some good questions then. Get some of the Blue Monday team. Wow. I thought there were some decent questions there. But Simon's take a 2-1. CC Drags 2-all. Broadhead with the winner, says Streaky. There you go. I think we've... Oh, there we go. Amos 9-0 Town. Finally, some closure from that one. 3 the Ipswich 9 and a 4-2 from Michael. I think... Oh, and Matt. Here we go. I just have a feeling this is the game when Jack Clark arrives. There is a prediction to leave things on. I think we'll leave it there because we are at the hour. Seb, as always, brilliant job from you. You mentioned the abundance of riches of data, research, analytics out there, but you still have to make it interesting, which I believe you tried your hardest, and that's all we could ask. But thank you so much for your insight. Thank you, everyone, for the chat, for joining. If you stuck around for the whole duration, the 1 hour, we appreciate you. Please, before you depart, do give that thumbs up. It makes all the world of difference for us here. And return on Sunday for the flagship show, 8:30, slightly later start, to talk through all of the game after the fact. If you're going to Portman Road, do support ITFC fans supporting food banks. And I think that's all I have to say, Seb. So I will let you... I think I have to say the sign-off.
You have to take us out. Yeah, we won against Spurs, so I'll pass back to you for the sign-off, and hopefully we can keep this going for a few more games. Enjoy the game, everybody. This is what we got back to the Premier League for. The world's biggest football club will be at Portman Road on Sunday to face Manchester United. Obviously, I had to get that one in there. Make it loud, make it hostile. Let's get a great atmosphere coming through on the cameras for Sky, and take us out, my friend.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy your free Saturday. When it becomes Sunday, it gets real again. But this is why we're here, as Seb says. Let's enjoy it. Let's get behind the team. Come on, you Blues!